Okay, let's dive into this. We've all seen it, right? Some schools just seem to have this magic. They consistently succeed. And then there are others, sometimes right down the street, that always seem to be struggling. But what if the reason isn't just about funding or demographics or the latest teaching trend? What if it's something way deeper? Something literally encoded into the school itself?
I mean, this image really gets to the heart of the puzzle, doesn't it? You can have two schools planted in the exact same soil with really similar student backgrounds and resources, and yet one just flourishes while the other one withers. Now, we know demographics play a part, for sure, but they absolutely don't tell the whole story. The real difference, as this incredible research suggests, is found in the school's organizational DNA.
So the big question is, how do you actually get in there and map this hidden code? Well, it's not about just sending out a quick survey. The insights we're about to unpack come from an incredibly deep, long-term investigation.
Get this. Researchers spent 14 years studying 8 Swedish schools. They started huge, analyzing national data to statistically pinpoint which schools were always overperforming and which were underperforming. Then, to make it a fair fight, they matched them up by size and location to really isolate what was happening on the inside. And then they went in deep, with over 100 in-depth interviews. This is not guesswork. This is a serious look under the hood.
Now, the theory behind all of this is called sociological institutionalism. It sounds super academic, I know, but the idea is actually pretty simple. A school isn't just a building or a business with inputs and outputs. It's a living, breathing social system. It has its own inner life, all the unwritten rules, the shared beliefs, the norms about how we do things around here. That inner life, that culture, well, that's the school's unique DNA.
And what the research found is that this DNA basically creates two totally different types of organisms. On one side, you have the successful school. Think of it as a culture of consensus and coordination, like a beautifully engineered machine where every single part works together perfectly. And on the other side, the failing school, a culture of fragmentation and conflict, like a box of puzzle pieces that just don't fit.
All right, so let's break it down. Where are these differences the most obvious? The study really zeroed in on 3 crucial areas: what leadership looks like, how teachers actually interact with each other, and of course, the core philosophy of teaching itself.
First up, leadership. In the successful schools, it's stable. It's visionary. Principals are there for the long haul, and leadership isn't just one person's job, it's a collective effort. They feel supported. But in the failing schools, it's the complete opposite. It's a revolving door of principals, constant reorganizations, and a climate of mistrust. Leaders feel totally isolated, completely unsupported, and nothing ever gets a chance to stick.
And this quote from a teacher? Wow. It just brings that reality to life, doesn't it? Can you imagine being a teacher in that kind of environment? With that constant churn, there's no shared vision, no coherent direction. Leadership just becomes a series of disconnected projects. And you can't blame teachers for just disengaging. The organization is just stuck in a state of fragmentation.
Okay, now let's talk about how the teachers work together, because this DNA difference really plays out here. In the successful schools, you see this tightly woven social fabric. Collaboration is part of the structure, it's valued, and it's all focused on student learning. But in the failing schools, teachers basically work alone. It's a tangled mess of isolation, where everyone's classroom door is shut and they guard their autonomy.
And this is what that collaboration actually looks like when it's working. It's not just about sharing a lesson plan in the break room. It is a culture where your professional practice is public, not private. The classroom isn't a castle you have to defend. It's a shared space where everyone can learn from each other. And when teachers see their colleagues as assets, not threats, the entire school just gets smarter.
And finally, this all leads us to the heart of the mission, right? Teaching. In successful schools, there's this unwavering, deep belief that every single student can succeed. They systematically track progress, and they adapt their teaching to meet the kids where they are. In the failing schools, there's a real lack of focus on results, and this is so crucial, there's a tradition of blaming the students or their family backgrounds for any low achievement. The school just doesn't see itself as the main driver of change.
I mean, this quote right here, this captures the mindset difference that changes absolutely everything. It's the shift from asking, why can't this student learn, to asking, how can we change our teaching to help this student learn? You see? One of those questions is a dead end. The other one is the engine of improvement. That difference in agency is at the absolute heart of the performance gap.
Okay, so we've seen these two totally different cultural codes. But how, exactly?
does this internal DNA translate into the actual real-world results we see in things like student achievement?
Well, you can see this really clear chain of events emerge from the research. It starts with the organization's unwritten rules, collaboration versus isolation. Those rules then drive how the professionals behave, so joint planning versus working alone. That, in turn, creates the student's learning environment, which is either stable and supportive or fragmented and inconsistent. And that environment directly leads to the final outcomes. It's a straight line from culture to results.
So, if you're in one of those struggling schools, how on earth do you change your DNA? Well, the answer is fascinating because it's not about implementing some top-down checklist of best practices. It's not that simple. These successful cultures, they don't just appear by accident. They grow organically from social interaction over time. The study found it really requires 3 key things. First, you need an agent, a principal, or maybe a core group of teachers who fiercely defend the school's goals. Second, you need a deeply held, shared vision that student learning is the absolute non-negotiable mission. And third, and this is key, that vision has to be rooted in the school's daily routines and conversations. It has to be lived, not just laminated and stuck on a wall.
And that really brings us to the most important conclusion of all this. The path to getting better isn't about finding a superhero principal or firing a bunch of bad teachers. People's actions are shaped by the system they are in. Real, lasting improvement requires changing the system itself, the norms, the structures, and the day-to-day interactions.
So the real question this research forces all of us to ask, not just principals, but everyone involved in education, is this. It's not who do we blame, but instead, how can we intentionally create and maintain the conditions that build a new organizational DNA? How do we build systems that allow that consensus and coordination to actually flourish? Because that, it seems, is the real secret to building a school that succeeds.